die. If we got caught, we'd probably die. And so there's something instinctive that knows that. But there's crucial signals that tell our hearts to speed up when we're in danger, and they come from a mass of cells hitting the heart. It's called a sinoatrial node, or SA node. It's easy to say. Sinoatrial node, or SA node. So it's located in the right atrium, and that would be in the heart, and it controls the rhythm of our heartbeat and the movement of the blood from the heart to every part of our body. So you know how a lot of people say the blood is the key. So it's the fluid, your body's natural peacemaker. So it's using signals to set the pace. So what determines the heart rhythm is something we'll talk about maybe, but later. So a pulse is the only thing that relies electrical impulses generate our cells. So our cells are capable of generating electricity. Goodness sakes. So we're electrical. And you think that's why we're so emotional? Is it because I respond to the feelings of emotion. Do you, Ahmed? Like lightning?
I don't know. Then every computer would be emotional.
Well, why do we have emotions? I'll have to look that up. Let's see if it has anything here. It says that negativity is resting on the state of our cells. Huh? That's what it says, human voltage. How does the body make electricity, and how does it use it? It's related to a slight imbalance between potassium and sodium ions. Oh, man, that makes the brain. And I hear a lot of old people back in Kentucky where I used to live, they have low in potassium or sodium, and it makes their brain not work properly. They get dingified. Older people would ask what's wrong with them and would take them to the doctor or me, because I guess I was younger in my 50s, so I'd go take the 15, 20-year-old people my mother's age to the hospital, and they'd have an imbalance in their electrical capacity in their cells. And they'd be low on sodium or they'd be low on potassium, so there's a balance there we have to keep. So your cell membranes practice a trick, often referred to as the sodium-potassium gate. We don't usually talk about all this stuff, folks, but I guess it has to do with electricity of the Bosnian pyramids and coming and going from this planet. But the simple explanation of these gates, we call them stargates in the outside world, and inside, they're a complex mechanism inside ourselves. And these gates generate electrical charges. So at rest, your cells have more potassium ions inside the sodium ones. Okay, let me say that again. When we're resting, I wonder if that has something to do with the way we think, Ahmed. So when we're resting, our cells, mine and Ahmed's, and probably people like us, ET people that are electrical, while we're in our body anyway, probably when we're out of our body, but while we're in, we're using sodium and potassium ions. And there are more sodium ions outside the cell, so the potassium ions are negative. So the inside of a cell has a slightly negative charge. Now, on the other hand, sodium ions are positive. So the area immediately outside the cell membrane is positive. So there isn't a strong enough charge difference to generate electricity through the resting state. So when the body needs to send a message from one part to another, it opens a gate. Ew, this is neat. It goes with our alien Stargate topic tonight for our organization. So when the membrane gate opens, sodium and potassium ions move freely into and out of the cell. So negatively charged potassium ions leave the cell because they're attracted to the positive outside the membrane. Cool. And positively charged sodium ions enter it moving towards the negative charge. So the result is a switch in the concentrations of the two types of ions and rapid switches in charge. So it's kind of like switching between a 1 and a 0, like we do in the computers that flip between positive and negative. it generates electrical impulses. So the impulse triggers the gate on the next cell to open, creating another charge, and so on and so forth. So the electrical impulse moves from a nerve in your stub toe to part of your brain that senses the pain of the brain pain. So it's also how the SA node tells your heart muscles to contract, or your eyes to tell your brain that what they just saw is the word brain, and how you're comprehending this article. It's because I'm reading it. So since everything relies on electrical signals, break down your body's electrical system, it's a real problem. When you get an electrical shock, I always wondered about this, folks, and I've died a few times, but they didn't have to shock me back in. The gods that I believe in sent me back, or the extraterrestrial gods, whomever you want to talk about. But when you get electrical shock, it interrupts the normal system, your operating system. So it's like a power surge. So shock at the lightning level can cause your body to stop. That's why we're scared of lightning. We don't like lightning. It will stop our hearts. So the electrical process, it wouldn't work anymore. It's fried. So there's less dramatic problems like an SA node misfire that causes a heart palpitation, an extra heartbeat, or a lack of blood flow to the heart. So that upsets your pacemaker if you have one. But if you don't, we call them peacemakers. Your heart, it's your peacemaker. Causes other parts of the heart to stop sending the impulses. So, did I lose you, Ahmed? Are you able to understand this? Is it boring you?
I'm here.
Put you to sleep? Well, this is stuff we don't ever talk about, but this has to do with the Stargate and the Bosnian Pyramids, because we do understand they're emanating electricity, and that they also have more of, it's called Peace Hill, was in this other reality where I went to my dream that woke me up in a lucid dream, and then I got up and I looked and I was turned around and it looked like the Bosnian Pyramid Park, but I didn't know it at the time. But it has to do with the less dramatic parts of us with our brain and the blood flow, and how maybe a heart palpitation is or lack of blood flow in the heart that speeds up your peacemaker or pacemaker. So sometimes if we die from coronary artery disease, it's the narrowing of the arteries. So if the heart is being told to contract, it never gets a full contraction. It can't get even enough blood to ensure that the body can rest. So leading to oxygen deprivation and a possible heart attack or stroke. So that's why they have us keep our arteries as clean as possible. And when you've got two arteries, one carotid arteries on both sides of your neck, and if you get those tubes where they can't, you will have a stroke. And I've got a friend going through that right now. My daughter's just coming in from Birmingham tonight for her husband that's had this stroke, and his carotid arteries on both sides of his neck were totally full. He's got like 99%. But it has to do with the electricity. So with electricity, if you make a really good power source for the human beings, they power the matrix. Say what? We power the matrix.
That's what the Matrix movie was about. They were using the human body for power.
Wow. So a body can generate 10 to 100 millivolts. And that source comes from nanomedicine, nanomedicine, just so you guys know. So a cathode ray tube requires 25,000 volts to create a picture on a TV. And that's physics Facebook. I know physics Facebook, okay? If the machine could gather millions of electrical eels, those little things, electric eels that are out there in the ocean, in a hand, they'd be well juiced up. So a single eel produces 600 volts. Okay, so blood battery, what is that? Human's electrical system in a human battery. Okay. Panasonic is looking to use the human blood. What? I'm going to read it. The human blood to power electrical devices. It's researching how blood can break down sugars to generate power like it generates energy. It's called the human battery, powered by nano devices implanted in the body. Well, I guess they have to have those. There's a lot we think we don't know, but people in medicine do. So there's a lot to be said about electricity in the body. So, it signals life. We have to have electricity. We don't think enough about it. We sure don't teach enough about it. So the power of blood and the human batteries and how we work with each other and power the existing matrix is a big part of our ancient history. And the Bosnian pyramids, the 5 pyramids, we relate to the Allied Command and the 5 stars and the 5 ships and the 5 historically, it's clues that the ancients left behind as extraterrestrials. And not everybody remembers all of that. Some are called the archonic thoughts are negative, and the Elysians were the positive thoughts. And historically, we try to keep our history and our ancient culture. And when I had the Ace Folklife Society start up, it was to help with all the people up in the hills of Kentucky, where I lived. A lot of people had folk stories, and they didn't read or write very good. Some not at all, believe it or not, still. And that was I moved up there with my husband in 98 because I loved the people there. They were really country. It was the Bill Monroe Foundation people. Good as gold, had their own culture up in the mountains, and they even had Bigfoot that was set up in the coal mines. And I couldn't believe it because I was into the paranormal and the ancient cultures and stories, folklore. So I looked up and went to the University of Kentucky, and I wasn't interested in people and their stories, but that one with Bigfoot and then seeing UFOs, it got me really interested how they put those two together. And some of my friends down the road said there was always at night a UFO over my 3 to 5 in the morning. They'd get up, sit at their table, they could see my house, and they'd watch it. Like over a pyramid, just a bright light would shine down. So I don't know if that's true or not, but that's what they told me. They passed, but they also were the ones that told me about their parents up, and I was gathering archive information on them, how they lived up in the hills in the coal mines up in Kentucky, because I was born in Louisiana. Now, what's this got to do with Semir Osmanagich? I don't know. But it does have to do with alien Stargate Pyramids and bringing light down and working with alien extraterrestrial stories in our ACE Club, our Ace Folklife Club, and gathering stories from the ancient ones, and also the people that passed down. They couldn't read or write, so they would sit around when they were working on the coal, and they would ring a bell. They didn't have phones. There's no such thing as cell phones up there. But they just didn't have phones, and so they'd have little churches and little schools and little cultural, just many. I don't think it would be a town, would it, Ahmed? I don't know how many people comprised. But you know what I'm talking about, Ahmed. Have you studied how people got started back in the day in the hills? They sit around and talk story, and some of them would have from the old country in Europe, mandolins, fiddles.
That's how it was social media back then, to sit around a campfire and discuss stuff.
That's what we're doing tonight. We're sitting around a campfire discussing why Dr. Osmanagich didn't show up on the famous day, Wednesday, August 21st, 2019. I'm sure he's probably still stuck on a plane. And Dr. Sam, I don't know if you'll ever get to hear this, but we miss you. And we believe in you. And you're a global ambassador. And you talk about the things that we need to know about in our ancient cultures, and you're bringing them back and getting us back close to where we should be with the ecosystems and terraforming planets and alien Stargate Pyramids and the ancients and how they believed. And they believed we came from the stars and how our bodies are regulated with electricity and how the pyramids all over the world were set up with a grid and how the ley lines worked and how we could study sacred geometry and the flower of life. And what was the other thing that it